So guess what? We're live. Hello, Facebook. I'm Patrick Coffin, host of The Patrick Coffin Show. My guest is Leila Miller. Cue the sound of the stadium applauding. Leila is an author.
Patrick.
Hey, nice to see you. I just want to throw people at your books. Raising Chaste Men, Practical Advice, Mom to Mom. I hated that book because I'm not a mom, and I couldn't relate to any of it. None of the content. Now in the second edition, so congratulations on that. You and I have talked about this on a previous episode. Primal
That's
Loss, which is still rolling across the country and beyond. 70 or so stories of adults whose parents divorced when they were kids, and the ongoing fallout from that decision. A well-named book, Primal Loss, and Made This Way, that you co-wrote with our mutual friend Trent Horn. Mm-hmm. So let's start there. Yeah. What's that book about? And then we'll launch into what just happened.
Yeah, and are you hearing me okay? Because I'm hearing you. I'm sort of hearing, not really an echo, but
no,
are you hearing me okay? If you're hearing me at the right time, we're good.
I can. There's a 19-second delay, but I'm a media professional, and I'm catching up to you. It's fine. I can hear you great.
Sounds great. All right. So, Made This Way, and I'm just going to share this on my page if you don't mind. Mm-hmm. Okay. So Made This Way was something that both Trent and I, we kind of thought of at sort of the same time we were conceiving of this book that needed to be written that really wasn't out there yet, which was how do we help parents especially talk to their kids, both little kids and then the teens, about these really crazy cultural issues that are coming up. Clearly things like gay marriage or transgenderism, even things like pornography, but it ended up being 10 of the ways that we misuse human sexuality. So we thought, okay, we need to write about it and help people have tools in order to teach their kids, because people are just completely terrified with what's out there and how to speak to their kids who are kind of dropping like flies to the culture. So we put it in really simple terms, natural law terms, logical terms, and different sections on how to talk to little kids and how to talk to big kids about those issues. So
good. You have real world experience. You have kids. You have a passel of kids.
Yes, I do.
I want to say 8. Am
I
right?
Yes, I do. I do have 8, yes, and I have a bunch of grandkids already, so lots going on in the Miller household. Yeah.
I find it hard to believe. In fact, I'm going to call you I'm going to call you a liar right here.
Believe it or not, I have more grandchildren now than I have children.
Wow, congratulations. That's fantastic.
Yeah, numbers 8 and 9 are on their way. So
well, maybe we can start there, because you could write a book about how in how many different ways people misunderstand the Catholic Church's teaching about fertility and fecundity and generosity and the true meaning of love, sex, and marriage. Right. To hear that someone has 8 kids nowadays, you should have been locked up a long, long time ago, because once you break the 2 barrier, once you go to 3, family members start saying, you know how these are created, right? And then 4, it's the person, it's beyond hope. 5, what can you say? 8, and yet, go ahead.
I was going to say, past about 5 or 6, then they start to cheer you on, because then it's almost like, are you going to make it to 10? I mean, they almost want to see this continue. It's like almost, it's a phenomenon, I guess. But
the gloves are off. Just let the chaos happen.
That's right. Exactly. So, but yeah, we were done at 3, believe it or not. So when Dean and I got married, I was a lapsed Catholic and he was an agnostic Jew, and 2, 3 max. That was it. And we were each from 2 kids each. I mean, I have 1 sibling, he has 1 sibling. So 3 was it. And we actually were absolutely crazy, because we had a boy and a girl. Well, first we had a girl and then we had a boy. So we had that perfect family. Yeah. And then we went for number 3, and that was really over the top. And then that was going to be it for us. But that's thankfully when our reversion and our conversion came in. And so we are really grateful to God that wasn't stymied in any permanent way. So
sounds like a premise to a sitcom.
Yeah.
A lapsed Catholic and an agnostic Jew and
together.
Hijinks ensue.
And they do.
So how did you relapse, and how did Dean Christianify? I think that's a word. I just made it up.
Question. It's a great question. So basically, I was sporadically, I was going to a really unfortunate Catholic parish that was so of the world and so left wing that I was disgusted. So I wasn't going to mass very often anyway. I had kind of fallen off the morality train a while back. But I thought, well, I'm still Catholic. So, and then it was just such a train wreck, that whole parish, that I said, I was talking to one of my friends who had recently become an evangelical Christian, and she was talking about this great, strong pastor and all the things that he was saying. And, we were raising kids. This was in the mid-'90s. And I said, yeah, I need to get on that bandwagon. So I took it to my mom one night, and I just said, Mom, I might be leaving the Catholic Church. What do you think? And she stopped everything. I mean, it took me maybe a couple more weeks, but she said, you know what, find out why you're leaving before you leave it. And then later she followed up by giving me a copy of Carl Keating's Catholicism and Fundamentalism, and all bets were off after that. So then I was a gung-ho Catholic. Pretty soon I started learning everything that I could that I'd never been taught for all the years of my catechesis, which was really lame in the 70s and 80s. Clearly we were not catechized. And then my husband started hearing my discussions with my friend, the evangelical. We were debating all the stuff. And then Dean started kind of hearing what we were talking about and being drawn into these questions. And finally, one day, I think it was that I showed him some of the Old Testament prefigurements of Christ. And his eyes got really big one night. And I remember him thinking, because I said, who does that sound like? It was like the Isaiah prophecies, or, Psalm 22, I think it was. And he's like, that sounds like Jesus. So he kind of had his own little crisis, or his conversion going on. And so God was really merciful that he allowed that to happen sort of simultaneously, that we were coming into the faith at the same time, which was almost a miracle. But yeah.
That was going to be my next question. I didn't hear that story, because really tough when one partner catches fire. Yeah, we got a little connection issue here. Leila, hold on a second.
Yeah, is it me or you?
Yeah,
okay.
Let me just double check. Yeah, a lot of warbling sound. Try again. Can you say a few words, Leila? There's a poor connection.
Can you hear me?
I can. There's poor connection on your end, but I can still hear you.
It's on my end. Oh boy.
Yeah. Any other devices nearby? Just turn them off, and we shall proceed henceforth with alacrity.
All right. Should I turn off my is it my Facebook page, do you think? Would that be interfering?
Yeah.
That wouldn't.
It should be okay. Just if you have any nearby, if your cell phone, I always put mine on airplane mode, just to silence it all.
Mine's in the kitchen.
Oh, okay, we're fine then. No, I was going to say to you that it's very, very difficult when one spouse catches fire and the other does not, because then it becomes really lopsided, and you're looking at the person that you decided to spend your life with, and now you have a different highest value than he or she does. Just very, very, very hard to stay, locked together. And so he got baptized, and you kind of recommitted, and you made your sacraments as a little girl, right? It's confirmed?
As a little girl.
Yeah.
As a little girl, confirmed. Well, 14, right? And then he was baptized when he was 31. It was on my 30th birthday, and we actually already had 3 children and had been married 6 years at the time. So everything changed after that. I don't even remember the first 6 years. I don't remember what we talked about. I don't remember what it was like. So everything changed. And now we're really, for the past 20, well, that was 22 years ago. So now we're just we just talk Catholic stuff. Our whole life is centered around our faith. So it's a completely, and we had 5 more children after that, and 5 boys, actually. So it was pretty cool.
Well, think when the fertility police stare at you, right, with that derision, why? What they're really saying is the world would be better without your youngest. At least, right? That's what the message is.
I know, and he's amazing. And our youngest is like the most loving, wonderful. He's 9 now, and just he's like the one that you'll want, So it's like, wow. Not that I don't love every one of them, I do, but it's like, wow, that 8th one was just amazing. So
it's a nice cherry on
we're
top.
glad we kept going. Yeah, exactly.
And do you find this, because I want to segue to keeping your kids in the faith? I find a tragic phenomenon in the following. Someone from a large Catholic family. Oh yeah, I was one of 9, one of 8, whatever, one of 7. And they've left the church. And they hate what they think the church's teaching is on contraception. And if they're part of the younger collection of those kids, they were the last to be had, they don't connect the dots. That if they had that attitude, if their parents had that attitude, they wouldn't exist at all. let alone here we are existing and we're held over the abyss of nothingness by God's continual will that we continue to be, they wouldn't exist at all. There's a big blindness to those two dots.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah, that's huge. It reminds me of, what was it, Chelsea Clinton, who said that she, it was sad that her grandmother didn't have access to Planned Parenthood or something like that. And I'm thinking, what are you talking about? That doesn't even, do you hear yourself?
Yeah.
It's crazy. So my kids do have a real understanding, especially the 5 boys that came after our big conversion. They know they're here because of our Catholic faith. And in fact, number 4, who's a wonderful college student right now, he's very devout, and we call him, he's our first Catholic baby. And he knows it. He knows. And we love that. We tell the story. Like, you weren't supposed to be here. I actually mourned my 4th child that I would never have after Dean was going to get a vasectomy. And I remember consciously mourning. Like, I wonder who that 4th child would have been. I wonder what he or she would have looked like. And I had to do that mourning. And then through a series of really interesting events, he never had the vasectomy. Then we had the conversion. And then we had our Paul. And so he is the one I got to see. What a grace that I didn't. He's that 4th child I mourned, but yet then I got to meet him. So it's been incredible.
Here's a kind of a tearjerker. It's a very simple, sweethearted movie, and it harkens back to the Disney of old. It's called The Odd Life of Timothy Green. Have you seen that?
No,
Yeah, it's Jennifer Garner and Joel Edgerton. It's the sweetest, most sacramental. It's a childless couple that are trying to get pregnant, and they drink wine one night, and they're told, look, it's done, you can't have any kids. And they write down on 7 pieces of paper the 7 qualities that they share that they wish that the child that never existed had. And they put those 7 qualities in a box, and they bury it. And there's a kind of a mystical lightning storm that night, and voila, this boy named Timothy appears. And he is those 7 qualities. It's just so... it's like a goosebumpy little sweet little movie, but you'll love it. Given your story,
I want to see that.
You're welcome in advance. So the Odd Life of Timothy Green.
Great.
That's about 5 or 7 years ago. The trailer made me cry. I'm a movie crier. I was like baby poop in a sneaker just watching the trailer.
That's so sweet. All right, I'm going to watch that, Patrick.
Good. So Leila, how did you start the little Catholic bubble idea? Because you began as a blogger, and then you grew an audience, and you got. The great thing about blogs is, as you know, you get instant feedback from your readers. Maybe that day you can start on Blogspot, and so you've grown. Right. Were you interested in writing as a teenager in school, or was this sort of a late vocation?
I was always a writer. I mean, since I was a little tiny kid, I just naturally wrote, and I wrote. It just was my strength always. No one ever taught me how. So it's just a natural thing that I was one of my only gifts. I always say I have very few gifts. One of them was I can write pretty coherently. So yeah, I was an English major in college. Then after having babies, I went into advertising for a little while, but I really wanted to be a wife and mom. So that's what I did. And then did have a regular editorial column for the Phoenix paper for a while in the 90s on a whim. Everything in my life happens on a whim. So that was on a whim with another fellow mom, the evangelical that I told you about. We wrote kind of from a Generation X mom's perspective, and we never went into the office. We just faxed in our columns. And then and that's when we had our reversion. She converted too, by the way, this evangelical friend. Yeah, and her husband and her parent, everybody.
So just a quick interruption. If any of the millennials or younger are listening, you can look up the word fax in an online search and find out what that historical thing. Yes. Yeah,
that's right. There wasn't even email then. It was
no,
bizarre.
yeah. That's a good publishing name, by the way. On a Whim Publishing. Because it also works on a whim, right? The poor one, the on a whim. You with me?
Wow.
So it's double. I didn't do that. You did that. I'm just siphoning out the gold there.
Providence in this interview. So that was kind of on a whim, and then I just went about my life and taught RCIA. We did some things with the church, and then I started reading some of the. I had some friends who had some infertility issues, and they were Catholic, and the world says do IVF, do these other artificial things. And I knew that was, of course, wrong because I'd been teaching the faith now for a while. And so I started reading to help one or two of my friends. I started looking up some of these Catholic bloggers who were infertile bloggers. So, and these are my friends to this day, but I found this whole group of infertile Catholic bloggers who were, that was when blogging was really big, and they were helping each other through this difficult cross. I mean, just these women, I would just read their blogs and think these are the holiest women, because on the one hand, they're being judged by by Catholics who look at them in the pews and say, you've been married 5 years, are you contracepting? That's what they're thinking in their head. Like, what's wrong with that couple? And then on the other hand, the culture is saying, and the liberal Catholics are saying, why don't you use IVF? I mean, what's wrong with you? So they are standing firm on Catholic Church teaching, carrying this cross, and I just fell in love with these women. So there was a whole bunch of them. So I'd occasionally write things in their comment boxes, and they got to know me just as this fertile myrtle that was just loved who they were, and I loved their holiness and their dedication. But I would also throw in some apologetics. I was pretty good at defending the faith and explaining the faith in simple ways. So after a while, they recruited me. They kept saying, Leila, you need to get a blog. And I'm like, I don't have anything to say. I have nothing to say. Which now, of course, I'm laughing. But finally, just for them and for their sake, I said, okay, I'll just start this blog, and then I'll help you guys learn more of the nuances of the faith while, you're just so holy, but we're going to go along and help each other. And then one day I opened up that blog. So really it was for them, and I already had a little following. And then I opened it up and started asking questions of atheists or whatever. And somehow that kind of brought people to the blog that weren't that first group. And then people just, I guess, liked the discussions that were going on. And they were really quite interesting. So that went on for 8 years. And from there, people asked me to write that first book, because tell us how you had these great boys who grow up and they keep the faith, and okay, I guess I have something to say on that too. And that's just kind of how the whole thing, everything's on a whim, Patrick. I'm telling you, it really is. It's crazy. I
like it as a company name, or as an apostle name, on a whim production, on a whim books, because it's kind of dreamy and mystical, and it's your idea.
That's so cool.
Our topic today, holding on to the faith in a crazy world. And by the way, the church is in the world, so the church is, if you haven't really noticed, cough, cough, kind of crazy. I just did a coffin report for members of Coffin Nation on the Pan-Amazonian Synod coming up in October. The language in the working documents. No, it's in a couple of weeks. I don't know if you've ever seen the Babylon Bee.
Yes, I have.
Okay, so I'm interviewing the editor-in-chief, Kyle Mann of the Babylon Bee, kind of the main brains behind it. And that's great. Parody and reality have sort of met and mated. It's really hard to make fun of the gobbledygook stuff that some of these working documents reflect, like cosmovision, ecological wonder you almost can't out-parody the actual text. So what I did was
just use the text, and that becomes
remember back in the 70s, parents would say, if you play Paul McCartney backwards, or death metal backwards, well, this stuff you just have to read it forwards. So I took the document. It's the Instrumentum Laboris. I forget what it's called, the title of it, but working document. It's the thing that's going to guide the bishops in their synodal discussions and how they can destroy celibacy without anybody knowing it or noticing. And I cut and pasted the document. It's got 42,750 words, 19 references to, what's his name? The guy from Nazareth. Jesus. 19 references. So I just did a quick calculation. That is 0.044% of the entire document is devoted to Jesus. This is a Catholic, allegedly magisterial meeting of bishops. But our Lord and Savior, the founder of the Catholic Church, is a sliver of 1% of the focus. So I know that you probably get asked that by evangelical friends or lapsed Catholic friends. Why do you believe the claims of the church when the current leadership is either not seeming to be trustworthy, or it's the weaponized ambiguity? It's tough. I mean, you're shaking your head, and I'm nodding rather than I do too. It's like a wince fest. So how do you stay attached to the deposit of the faith, and somehow, because you can't ignore what Pope Francis says and does. You can't do it. It's in your face every day. It's on a 24-hour news cycle. And the next thing that seems to out crazy the previous thing. And I hate saying this. I mean, Catholics want their popes to be thoroughbred horses. man, look at it, man. This is the vicar of Christ. He's sort of the earthly standard, and I think Catholics have been spoiled for decades with precision in their popes. So, any practical wisdom for parents whose kids say, "I'm out of here. This is not distinguishable from the SJW stuff I hear at college."
Well, as I always say, you can kind of, I won't say that. One thing you can do, and I have done often, is I go directly to the source. So I go to the Catechism, and I see this one section of the Catechism which talks about the Church's ultimate trial. I think it's either headlined "The Church's Ultimate Trial" or "The Church's Final Trial." And you go through and you read those paragraphs, and I wish I had it in front of me, but it's so clear. It says that the Church will pass through this basically a lot of apostasy. Like, you'll see it as this false religion that kind of rises up and looks like the true faith. It looks like it's religion. And the Church has to pass through this age. It says that it holds all the promises of making the world a better place, or just that can solve all the problems of man and things like that. But that is not the faith, but it has to happen. It has to happen. And then that when the Lord comes again, basically the statement is that it won't be like some big ascendancy of the faith, rising up to meet her Lord in the air. It'll be after the final unleashing of evil, which is going to be testing the faith of all the faithful. And then and only then, it'll be after this unleashing of evil that the Lord will finally come down, swoop down and grab her bride. So it's kind of like, okay, you know what? It's nothing that hasn't been kind of prophesied, and it's even in our catechism. So
I just found it actually. It's 673, and it's linked into a couple of prophecies of St. Paul about the end. 673. Since the ascension, Christ's coming in glory has been imminent, even though, quote, "it's not for you to know times or season which the Father has fixed by his own authority." This eschatological coming, meaning the second coming at the end, could be accomplished at any moment, even if both it and the final trial that will precede it are delayed. So, 675, before Christ's second coming, the Church must pass through a final trial, that was the phrase you used, the final trial that will shake the faith of many believers. The persecution that accompanies her pilgrimage on earth will unveil the mystery of iniquity in the form of a religious deception, offering men an apparent solution to their problems at the price of apostasy from the truth. The supreme religious deception is that of the Antichrist, a pseudo-messianism by which man glorifies himself in place of God and of his Messiah come in the flesh. There's a line from Cardinal Newman, and I don't remember which, it's either a book or a set of sermons, and it's about the Antichrist. And he says the Antichrist will be, in spirit and in the actual man, will be so like Christ that one is tempted to say that Christ is like the Antichrist. So a really plausible deception, right? Not, hey guys, be vegan and eat goat milk only and kill the poor. It has to be plausible. And I think, I'm not an end times guy. I mean, I've grown up making fun of the Millerites and the Campbellites and the excesses of fundamentalism predicting next Tuesday and so on. But we're in times now where old supports are gone. One of my favorite teachers in the church today is Dr. Ralph Martin, and I've learned so much from Dr. Martin. And I think it was 1975 in Rome, he got this sort of prophetic word as an experience he had in prayer that I'm just summarizing now, that in the future, the support systems, I'm summarizing, the supports you're used to will be withdrawn. That's what it feels like. That old verities and predictable teaching and the deposit of faith being faithfully proclaimed, that's very shaky now. So there is a kind of, I don't want to call it the final trial, but maybe it is. Maybe this is sort of turning a corner into a place where those persecutions will become more and more open. Look what's happening to people like Christian bakers, or people who don't want to go along to get along. Now that the Supreme Court, think of it, unelected, black-robed lawyers deciding on behalf of 300 and how many million Americans there are, It happens at the state level when judges overturn the wills of the majority. And then Christians end up being a minority that's surrounded not just by people who don't care, but people who hate us. Because you and I, we want to debate the left, right? We want to find common ground. I'll talk to anybody. Give me an atheist. Give me a lapsed Catholic who's now, I don't know, living a life totally antithetical to the church. But the left, I'm distinguishing that from liberals, right? Old style liberals.
Oh, yeah.
The left want to delete us. We have to be silenced. We have to be deplatformed. We have to be shamed. We have to be shunted. That's the difference. And that's where the frustration sets in, because we're like little puppies. Look, we'll play, but all they want to do is kick the puppy. The puppy's not welcome to the party. Does that cohere?
Right.
Does that make sense?
Oh, it totally makes sense, because the idea that we aren't even allowed to speak anymore. I mean, and it has to be mandated that we can't speak. That's what we know. It's being done, backhandedly in a way by Twitter or Facebook. I mean, I've been in Facebook jail I don't know how many times. I can't, not even having access to my private messages because I'm being punished. Because why? I mean, why am I? Did I say anything obscene or vile or no? I mean, I'm saying the same things I could say freely 5 years ago, or it's nothing anyone would have censored at any time previous. So yeah, but just because I'm a Catholic who's a believing Catholic in all the things, and then a conservative politically, you're not supposed to speak. You can't speak, at least on those particular topics that it's just your betters, the elites. They just don't want you to. You're just not allowed to talk, and you're mean and terrible and awful, and you're hurting people's feelings. So you better shut up.
Right.
And now they're putting it into law. So that's the social part of it, social shaming and cutting you out of the social platform. But then there's the legalities and the laws that are being passed that will accomplish that, by force. And yeah, so it's real fun. But you know what? I always keep saying it's exciting times for Catholics, because
little bit of try that again, Leila Hart. Sorry, you're
who's with me? Who's against? Okay.
A screen.
Am I cutting out?
No, just a slight screen freeze. You said it's a little poor connection issue. You were saying it's an exciting time to be Catholic because.
Right, because we're starting to, first of all, be able to take a stand for our faith. Really, everybody I know that's kind of, I don't want to say nervous, but that feels this kind of oppressive thing coming over the culture, starting to go to daily mass, starting to pray more rosaries, starting to take their faith actually more seriously, not less seriously.
Yep.
It's kind of a dividing line that's going on here. So we can see that clearly. We can see people's true colors as things go on. Who's looking more like the world and who's getting the applause of the world versus who's going to get persecuted. Who's gonna be the one who gets socially shamed, legally censored, the whole. So we've got exciting things. I mean, it's what Christ said would happen. So in one sense, we're living through this epoch of history that is thrilling. Saint-making times, they say. So it's not comfortable. Well, I mean, I don't love it, but.
Well, our kids are watching how we react to it. Our kids are observing it, and I know as you track forward toward eternity, year by year, you start thinking about things like your legacy. And sometimes your legacy doesn't have to be 500 books that you wrote or the great American novel. It has to do with the way you responded to the world around you. And our generation have never encountered this. We never had marriage redefined. Those old enough to remember still being shocked when Roe v. Wade was decided. But now, there are certain references, Leila, I know that you can't make them because no one knows who these people are. Like if I'm giving a talk on the culture and how media shapes impressions and values, I make a reference to Ed Sullivan or Dick Van Dyke. Sound of crickets.
Blank.
I mean, everyone else laughs because who, what? So think of how fleeting just something like fame is. How fleeting it is. People, Ed Sullivan was a household name, and now. Yep. Unless you're of a certain age, he's just gone, which makes it really sad when Catholic leaders begin very happy to be identified with the faith as artists, whether it's a singer, a novelist, an actor, whatever it is, and then they get this, I don't know what to call it, catnip, the whiff of Caesar's incense. I don't know what it is. And all of a sudden, they chase that celebrity status because it's more important to be liked by the Upper West Side cocktail clique crowd than it is to care about your final judgment and the fact that your kids are observing your faithfulness to Christ. Now, I think you're right. As this, I don't want to call it gloom because I don't want to be. I'm not by definition a pessimist. I'm more. Well, actually, I'm a pessimistic optimist. I believe things will work out at the end, but they'll work out in the worst possible way.
Yeah, exactly.
You and I have talked about, and I've noticed that you've posted here and there about celebrities who just leave the faith. They just check out. Or they advertise their own agnosticism. And they don't realize that they're role models. Like a professional athlete is a role model to a young boy. You know?
Yeah. Long ago, there was a priest that I knew who used to work out his problems from the pulpit. And so he would stand up there and his doubts, and I don't know if I think he was having a crisis of faith, but he would work that out almost as if the congregation were his, the psychologist.
Free therapy.
Yes. And so we were just some of us were just really horrified because that's not where you work out your crises of faith. You don't work it out publicly like that. If someone's going to have a crisis of faith, you want to do that privately with a spiritual director who's solid and who's going to keep you on track when you're falling. And so what I find in social media a lot, and especially, and there's a real pitfall of being adored or, popular in Catholic circles, especially, that's all I'll say. But you start to feel like you've got a lot to say. Because look, I always tell people, if anyone starts to idolize or really like even me too much, I'm like, block me. Go and read some ancient saints. Go read the scriptures. Because I'm just I don't want to have any power over you or anything. And if I'm going off the rails, please tell me. I always tell people that, please, I have some people who keep me in check. Please tell me if I'm going off the rails here in our faith. But there's this popularity and there's this adulation and wanting to be liked by everyone. And after a while, you gain a little more popularity maybe with the more secular people. They seem to like you too. So you're like, oh, I can appeal to both. I can appeal to the people who don't quite know the faith. And they almost see it almost maybe as evangelizing at first. But then they realize they're wanting the approval of the world, world. And then who starts to look kind of mean? Oh, those old biddies in that church, that starts to say, well, we still believe in sin and hell.
Finger pointy, judgy.
Everybody's judgy. And so then the world starts to say, but you're such a great Catholic. You're great. Well, remember, the world is saying that to you. If the world is loving your type of Catholicism, if the world can get behind the kind of Catholicism you're projecting, there's a huge problem because this world we just talked about is completely at odds with Christ. It is we are in a free fall of moral relativism, even denying nature itself. We're denying male and female. I mean, you don't get much more basic and human than that. And we're even saying that's up for grabs. So if someone's suddenly, I've seen this trajectory so much, people start to question their faith or they're having a crisis of faith. Sometimes they'll play it out in their blogs or in their writing or in their interviews. And then shortly thereafter, they'll even say, I don't even know if I believe in God anymore. They'll say these things out loud in public. And then later they'll come back, but then they'll be waving a rainbow flag, and it's like, okay.
And this is why this stream will be demonetized, because you just said an incorrect combination of words. And by the way, I don't care. The LGBTQ2 movement, let's say, how quickly embedded June all of a sudden is as Pride Month. And I think a lot of people, if they want to appeal to the New York Times crowd and all the cool kids in celebritydom, they'll virtue signal some dopey, homage to Pride Month. They might not even believe it, but they want to be seen doing it. Hence, all these ribbons, right? One of my favorites, I saw Paul McCartney, whose music I really like, wore a T-shirt at a concert once, and it said "No landmines." And I thought, Paul, really? Who supports landmines again?
Right.
It's like such
really
an easy,
courageous.
low-hanging. Yeah, right. It's really
That's
stepping
so
out away
courageous.
from the crowd.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no courage there. Everybody's against landmines, right? And honestly, everybody's against unkindness too. Nobody it wants to, like I love one of the lines is like, well, you don't want, a transgender person to exist. It's like, what? Oh my goodness, there's not a person on this planet that I don't want to exist. I mean, every person on this planet was made in the image and likeness of God, and he created each person. I don't know how they make the leap from, hey, you know what? We need to stay true to God's created order. We need to make sure that people who are have some sort of dysphoria are getting help for the dysphoria. Mm-hmm. We need to be kind to everyone, but we can't fall in line with an ideology that is going to take us away from Christ and away from truth, away from reality. I don't know how they get from that to, we hate you and we don't want you to exist. Which is a line that even like Father Martin uses. He uses that line. They don't want you to exist. It's like, that's just a lie.
Yeah, it's just like crazy hyperbole.
Yeah.
Sometimes called gay drama. We got a bunch of questions. Want to turn to them?
Sure.
Oh my gosh, a lot of people here. It's so great to see. Beth Gross. Hi, wish I could stay. I'll have to listen later. Not good enough, Beth. That is not acceptable. I'm sorry. Yvette Wellacker, a good friend. If Chelsea's grandmother had access to Planned Parenthood, we might not have had Hillary or Chelsea. Ken Hensley joined. Hello, Ken. Ken's a former Livestream Hangout, by the way. Megan Stout. Oh. Hey, that's me. Not sure what that means. But thanks for the share, Megan. Marcus Santo, greetings, my oldest.
She's one of the infertile bloggers.
Oh, okay, great. Fantastic. Yeah. Marcus Santo, greetings, my oldest 3 of 8 have each in their own way left the faith, yet hold on to some things, but none are church-going currently. My wife and I feel that with the span of our 8 kids, there's a disconnect with the older from the younger. Not in relating to each other, but in the family time that we do. The older ones are not part of the often daily routine of family time, brief prayer, and so on, a decade of the rosary. It's kind of like something verses 2. I can't quite tell. It's kind of like verses 2 of being parents since the early days of our young family. Well, that's certainly true, isn't it? The older kids grow a little culture, and then the younger kids grow their own little. I think that's probably natural. It's got to be hard. I know. You and Dean have worked so hard to make the tribe one in the faith. It just must be so hard to have conversations at dinner where your teen, the one whose diapers you changed and who you were there for the first skin knee and the first bike ride, they're saying that either the faith is a crock or that relativism is the ultimate truth. It's tough. Mm-hmm. There's no magic wand for it. Carmen Anne Marie Schimberg, the laborious. I'm a little bit behind here. She calls it the laborious document, the Vatican one for the Amazon Synod. That's awesome.
Oh, I don't even want to look. Yeah.
Carolyn Schuster. What? No left behind options? Not for Catholics, because it ain't in the Bible. Melody Charles Gallucci. Hey man, Lissa. There's so many names I can't go through them all. But we're talking about holding on to the faith in a crazy world with blogger and author extraordinaire Leila Miller. Are you still at? What's your official title?
No, my new right.
You got a new thing?
So I don't know. I have a new blog. I mean, I don't blog at Little Catholic Bubble anymore, but I blog at leilamiller.net. So
okay.
And it just because there's a lot of reasons for that. But anyway, But that's where the new blog is.
I'm just putting it there, Leila.
Yeah, it's Leila.
Yep.
Yeah, got it.
.net?
.net.
See, you can say, like fishers of men. Get it? Net. Very good. So I just put it up there.
I'm an idea. You're full of these good ones.
I'm an idea factory. I am.
You are.
Carolyn, why didn't I tell my husband about Father Morris leaving the priesthood? I didn't want him to be weakened by the public crisis of faith. Well, I don't know. I'm glad you brought that up because Father Jonathan Morris, the former Legionaries of Christ, then he jumped ship to the Archdiocese of New York, and it was for, 12 or 14 years, a priest of a commentator on Fox News. He announced about 5 weeks ago or so that he was leaving the priesthood, and then just last week or the week before, he went on Fox with a natty suit and tie and TV glasses saying he's presenting himself as Mr. Jonathan Morris. And the way he described his, I mean, I don't follow Fox, my wife and we don't have TV at all.
Good.
But the fact that he was still a seminarian and says he had some kind of an affair, and rather than listen to him and let him go, they double down, and he says that they flew him to Mexico to meet with Marcial, the drug-abusing pederast predator who founded the Legion, and he said, "Oh, no, this never happened. Shut your mouth. We'll move your ordination up 2 years." Well, I'm sorry, that's undue pressure. That does not sound like a valid priesthood, and I know there's more layers to the story, so I'm not in any way pointing fingers, and it does sound, if that account is true, like he has a good case for laicization. There has to be sufficient freedom at all points leading up to your ordination. However, I think what Caroline is pointing out is that he's not laicized. That's why I called him Father Jonathan Morris. Cardinal Dolan, he said, is helping the process, obviously gave him permission to wear civvies. I just think people who are in crisis need to go away and pull weeds on a farm for a year and sort themselves out.
Right. Quietly.
It's very confusing to parishioners who've used to a priest in the Roman collar being called Father, the father of the community, the one who brings Jesus Christ through the sacraments and so on. Very quick, just very whiplashy fast. I think that's the problem. And anyway, that's my 0.2 cents.
I agree. It's shocking, and it happens, and then to then have them just keep talking or keep being out there in the public, it's like, you know what? Again, work your problems out quietly. It's not necessary to confuse the masses. It's just we're already in such chaos, and people's faith is already shaken because of everything that's been going on, even especially since last summer. Do we need a public display of everything? No. I mean, quietly is really a good option. Yeah.
Celebrity priest is a really bad oxymoron.
I worry about that. Yeah.
Unless you're someone like Bishop Sheen, he was for decades doing daily holy hours, long before he was even on radio. And he was on radio, which means for 20 years, no one really knew what he looked like. He was on NBC back then. We're talking pre-television. It wasn't until 1951 that Bishop Sheen was on TV. And then by that point, he was firing on all of his intellectual pistons. He was at the top of his game. He'd been a college professor and had this mesmeric presence. But he never stopped that daily commitment. And and he always said, if I helped the Holy Spirit bring anyone into the church, it's because of the time I did and do in front of the God of the universe in that tabernacle. And I think that can be an anchor that can help you survive the perils of celebrity.
Yeah. It's too easy to go off and just really start to think. I think it was in the Ignatian exercise that really, when I saw the two standards, he talks about, the standard of Christ, which is love of humility. Basically, you have to love being humiliated, as Christ was able to stand there and be humiliated. Whereas the standard of Satan, meaning the banners, if you go over to that standard and those troops, it's about pride, and it's about seeing that people like me, and it must be me. It must be something that I've done. And then you start to get, as soon as the pride comes in, the devil has a foothold. The devil can just keep snaring you and taking you out, and you're going to stop praying. You're going to stop making holy hours, and he just never did that. He didn't, he didn't waver.
Did you write a blog post recently? Am I misremembering? It was one of the Ignatian principles about the devil appearing as a woman.
Yeah.
It's like totally un-PC. Acting as a woman. Flesh that out, because there's something terribly un-PC, but also wise. This is the founder of this is a doctor of prayer here. So how does that work briefly, and then we'll turn back to questions.
I love being not being not politically correct. So I don't care. I will not apologize for it. So St. Ignatius has his rules of discernment. And I don't know them. I haven't memorized all of them, but one that really struck me was, I think it's Rule 12, which says the devil acts as a woman when confronted by, if the devil comes to you, you need to basically act ferociously towards the devil, because the devil, like a woman, will shrink away as if when a man would approach her and be
And stand
kind of
up.
ferocious against her, she would run away, and she should. But the devil will do that. So you have to be like that, because the devil will shrink away. But also like a woman, and sorry, feminists, also like a woman, if you let the devil take an inch, he will also be like a woman, and he will start berating you more and more and more and become more ferocious against you. We know a woman's wrath. We know how women act when they're wronged or when they think that they're right and, you're wrong. There was a movie called Mean Girls. We understand why. So anyway, we have to treat the devil, we have to remember that the devil is like a woman in those ways. So
I think there's a Shakespearean play about this called The Taming of the Shrew, if memory serves.
Great. I love that one.
There's another Catholic literature genius. Matt Mercier, and you'll like this, one of my former Catholic high school teachers is going to be giving out mom hugs to people at the Pride Parade in our city. The idea behind this is to provide support for LGBT people who aren't supported by their families. This is very interesting to me. I have never heard a single anecdote about Ellen DeGeneres' father, Caitlyn Jenner's father. Why isn't it dad hugs? Because dad hugs are the key.
Right.
Of course they're mom hugs.
I think was it Joseph Chambra? I love Joseph. Joseph's a friend of mine. And Joseph Chambra, who, lived in that San Francisco lifestyle and lost a lot of friends to AIDS in the 90s, and came out of it after a decade or so. He's the one who says, you know what? It's the moms who are helping to pull their children away from the church because they go along with the sin, and then they end up pulling the rest of the family out too. So the kid leaves because he's going to live a sinful lifestyle. The mom has this false compassion and starts to sympathize with the child in a way that is not helpful. I mean, there's a way to love a child and not also then condone a sin. And then she gets sucked into that whole false compassion and that lifestyle, and then kind of the mom decides to be, quote unquote supportive of that. It's the wrong kind of support. So that's unfortunate, and it is generally the mom. Again, with the transgender stuff, I don't know many fathers who are the ones saying, "Let my son dress up, this way." Usually, they kind of go along if they're still married. They kind of maybe go along with the mom who's like, "Oh, let him be who he is. We don't want him to get hurt, and we don't want him to feel bad." And moms, we gotta stop. Be strong, moms. Yeah.
Megan Stout chimes in. There have been dad hugs too.
Oh, were there dad hugs on the?
Yeah, I've never heard of that. That's would be surprising.
Maybe they go along with the wives. I mean, again, I think a lot of husbands who are into that whole, false compassion, they do follow their wives' leads. It ends up being, that can happen too. But
just so many. Oh my gosh, all these questions. Wow. Because we have to stop a little bit early today. Why do you think, Leila Miller, that the word feminism can't be domesticated with a nice sounding adjective like Christian feminism?
Oh gosh, I mean, anybody who knows me knows how much I dislike feminism. Because I think Christianity already takes care of all that. So anytime you pull in this ideology called feminism, and you're trying to say Christianity needs more of this thing, what? Christianity is self-sufficient. I mean, it doesn't need a modern ideology to come in and fix it. When we live in a fully Christian way, we're good. It's all good. Every part of it is good.
Because they'll say, well, I'm a feminist, as people like Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and half the male DREs in the country, because they don't want to suffer the wrath of the other feminist-minded staffers, not to mention the professors that they took their degrees from, is that, I believe in equality between men and women. Your point is, that's what the incarnation did. It revealed the glory of men and women and their equality in dignity. So men and women, do you agree with this? Men and women aren't equal? Because that saying is absurd. We're equal in value, equal in dignity, equal in worth. But that's like saying, is a rhombus and a triangle, are they equal? Well, it depends on what you mean.
Right. And everybody's got some hidden meaning behind what they mean. Because we all know, I don't know any Christian, I have never personally in 52 years met a Christian who did not understand the concept that men and women were both created in the image and likeness of God, and that the Blessed Mother is the greatest creature, ever created, and that there are female saints who achieve the same, heights of sanctity as any man saint.
Yeah.
So I've never known this mythical Christian who believes that a woman is a lesser creature than a man. As in dignity and ability to become divinized or sanctified, or it doesn't make any sense. So who are those people? If they're talking about that men sin a certain way, yes, men sin a certain way against women sometimes, and women sin a certain way against men sometimes, and one is going to look different than the other. Yeah,
because what you're saying is boys and girls are different. And that's radical.
Can you imagine that?
And that triggers me. That triggers me.
Right. Yeah, I know it does.
Well, Leila, we have to do this again. This has been fun. Sure. Unfortunately, the number of questions exceeded the time that we had to answer them all, which is a very good sign. You're supposed to stop a board game when it's at the maximal fun, right?
Then we're having so much fun. And
just before I say goodbye, I want to let folks know we do this every Wednesday at usually 5 p.m. Pacific time. Now, if you're in Arizona, that's going to be weird because Arizona is sometimes
we switch.
You guys pierce the time-space
continuum. No, we don't switch. Everybody else is switching.
Of course,
right.
Yes.
We stay the same. We're consistent.
You're the rock. You're the island. Didn't Simon and Garfunkel wrote a song about you guys? So go to patrickcoffin.media, facebook.com/patrickcoffin.media. Like the page. Keep in touch. We're going to Germany. If you want to come to Germany with us, we're going on a life-changing pilgrimage to Oberammergau, Germany, which is in the heart of Catholic Bavaria. They do this live passion play every 10 years, as they have from the mid-17th century. We're going to be in the church where little Joey Ratzinger was baptized, hear about his call to the priesthood and his rise to the papacy, now Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI. We're going to Dachau. We're going to have Mass at the Carmelite Monastery on the grounds of the Dachau Death House. We're going to Munich, we're going to Regensburg, we're going to Salzburg, and our spiritual director is Father Willie Raymond, the great Holy Cross priest who's running the canonization cause of Father Patrick Peyton, famous for the family that prays together, stays together. So if you want to come and save $100 per person, it's patrickcoffin.media. In fact, I'll write it right here, because I can. patrickcoffin.media. Leila, if you know the Jeopardy theme song, you can just chime in.
Do 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 do. Is that it?
It's beautiful.
Well, I wouldn't say it's beautiful, but
it's a lovely.
I did my best.
No, it gets me right here every time. Yeah, there it is. So sign up. It's filling up. I don't want people to miss it, and because of Father's Day, we're extending the early bird $100 off. So also give you one more site to check out: www.coffinnation.com, the largest online community of culture builders. We are opening our doors mid-July. Get on the waiting list. Don't miss a trick. Leila Miller, thank you very much for being a gift. And I want to hear what you're doing next. And you're speaking and you're writing and you're talking.
Yes.
So thanks again. LeilaMiller.net.
Thank you so much.
Is the website.
Yep.
It's net like Fishes of Men.
That's right.
And okay. God bless.
Thank you so much, Patrick.
Be in touch. Okay, Leila.
Take care.
You
God
as well.
bless.
Bye-bye.